start with these immortal words. Achy, breaky heart. How did you do that? Right? Milton, I got a wedding coming up in July. Are you cheaper than the real Billy Ray Cyrus? Because after I pay for the flowers, I can't afford the real Billy Ray Cyrus anymore. Wow. You can be fat, you can be thin, you can be bald, you can be all kinds of things. Because with the magic of LA, you can fix everything. But you know the one thing you cannot fix on TV, and it's the same thing you cannot fix in sales. You can always learn your script better, and you can always deliver better, but you know what you cannot fix? You can't fix boring. Because nobody remembers boring. And in sales, it's not about what you say, it's about how you make someone feel. And boring doesn't make people feel good. So if anything, I hope I don't bore you today. So I'm Canadian. Woo! Woo! Are you doing that because you're Canadian? Oh, yeah, okay. All right. Here's the difference between Canadians and other people. Is there anybody here from Texas? See, that's a Canadian thing. We're really nice, right? When you say Canadian, people think the Mountie and all the other stuff. Or, this is the most iconic Canadian to all Canadians, Wayne Gretzky, right? It's all about hockey in Canada. You know, there's a guy on our show who's also Canadian, but he is the least Canadian in the world. It's Mr. Wonderful Kevin. He's probably the meanest Canadian we've ever known. I think the government is trying to deport him or something. So I'm on this show called Shark Tank, and thank you. And you know, the show is actually owned by Sony, and it runs in 40 countries. And in every other place in the world, Kevin and I, the mean, bald Canadian guy, and I used to do the show in Canada. In every other country in the world, it's called Dragon's Den. So when Sony wanted to make the show in the United States, they hired Mark Burnett. There's nothing I don't know. Nothing. So one time, this guy comes on the show, and he's the leader of the Mohican Aboriginal people, and he has a board game. It's kind of like Monopoly with a twist, and it doesn't do very well with us. By the way, we had 52,000 people apply to be on the show last year. Out of 52,000, we take 235 and we bring them to LA. And out of 235, we see about 190 of them. We'd see more, but we can't get Barbara to shut up. I'm just joking. Not really, but anyway. So the amazing thing about our show is we film it in 17 days. That's it. 8 days in June and 9 days in September. And we know nothing about the people. So if anybody pitches me today, you can't get on the show. It's true. Everybody who walks out, the premise is they've never met us before. So when those doors open, it's very real. We don't know their names. We know nothing about their business. We have no background information. We just sit there and they start pitching. And you know what? Sometimes people get nervous, they get a little scared, and they say, can I start over? And you know what happens to them? They're gone. It's that real. The average pitch is an hour. The longest pitch was 2.5 hours. The guy pitched for so long that Damon got up, went to the cafeteria, had lunch, came back, the guy was still pitching. The shortest pitch was 20 minutes. It doesn't matter how long or short the pitch is, it all gets edited into 7 to 8 minutes. And we shoot with 18 cameras, and so we just talk. It's easy, there's no preparation, there's no nothing. When I was on Dancing with the Stars, I thought it would be the same thing, right? You go there, you learn a little dance, how hard can it be? I was on the show 75 days in a row, and I rehearsed every day, 8 to 10 hours a day. It was incredible. Now, on Dancing with the Stars, I got to hang out with Kim. On Shark Tank, I got to hang out with Kevin and Mark. It's not the same. So this guy comes out, and he's got a board game. And he does the pitch, and if you ever watch the show, board games never do well. So Kevin says to the guy, oh, take it behind the barn, burn it, blah, 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 blah. He's gone. We've forgotten about him. 50,000 people. There's always another pitch around the corner. 2 years later, I get hired by the Aboriginal peoples of North America to present the Entrepreneur of the Year Award. I'm late. As I'm walking up the stage, there's 10,000 people in the audience. I'm reading who won. It's a fellow who invented a board game. It's kind of like Monopoly. It sold more board games than the original Monopoly in a shorter amount of time. Same guy. I love telling that story because, as you all well know, a no is just one step closer to a yes. And right? And it doesn't matter who tells you no. It doesn't matter how smart they think they are. It's really up to you. And just because you get a no from a shark, it may mean nothing. But sometimes we really are right. So we sit there 12 hours a day, and as you can tell, I have a hard time, I have a hard time standing still. Can you imagine sitting? So if there's a chance to pet a dog, play with a baby, try something out, I'm the first guy to go for it. So this lady comes out with this ball, and she's hopping around it, and I'm like, wow, that looks like a lot of fun. Can I try it? She's like, yeah. So I get in, she zips me out, and I'm like, woo, woo. I'm like, oh, it's really hard to breathe. She goes, I know, it's completely airtight. I'm like, oh, really? How long will the air last? She goes, well, it depends on your size, maybe 45 minutes, hour and a half, something like that. And I'm like,
how long does it take you to say yes?
Oh, and another great feature, you can't open it from the inside. I'm like, why? She goes, well, here's the premise. You and your friend, you go down to the water, you get in, he zips you up, and you float out onto the water. And that way, you can't open it from the inside, it's completely airtight, so no water can get in. I'm like, okay, crazy premise. We go down to the water, my friend puts me in, zips me up, I float out of the water, he goes back up to the house, has a couple of beers, and falls asleep. How do I get out? She's like, oh. I felt so bad for her, I had to go and talk to her after, which we're not supposed to. And I said, how could you, did you not ask anybody about your idea? You know what she said? 2 years, $75,000 she'd spent to get to that point. And you know why? She was afraid to ask a paying customer. So you know who she went to? She went to all her friends. And she went to all her friends and said, do you think this is a good idea? And you know what her friends said? Absolutely. But you know why they're your friends? Because their job is to love you, not to be that brutally honest with you. Most common mistake we see on the show, people are deathly afraid of rejection. And they do everything to avoid rejection. They work on the product, they work on the marketing, they work on the pamphlet, they work on the website. You know what they're afraid to do? Pick up the phone and call a customer. Because thank you. So we've all had, now the show's been on for 8 years, it's done really well. People always ask me, so I'll tell you, my most successful investment is Tipsy Elves. So these two guys come on the show 4 seasons ago. One's a lawyer, one's a dentist. Sounds like a joke, right? They don't want to be a lawyer and a dentist. And they decide to start a business. So they search the most searched things on the internet and the least amount of businesses, and they come up with ugly Christmas sweaters. So they don't want to just sell ugly Christmas sweaters. They decide to sell inappropriate Ugly. Look what the reindeer are doing. Here's how naive I am. They gave me the sweaters for free. I go home, this was a few years ago. I go to my daughter and I go, sweetie, I have these great sweaters. Put this sweater on, go to school. She's 14. Principal calls me and says, Mr. Herjavec, I'm not sure that's really appropriate. They come on the show, they're doing, I think, $600,000 a year. Show airs on a Friday. By Sunday, they sell another $300,000. That's the power of the show. That was 4 seasons ago. Last year they did $17 million. Ugly Christmas sweaters. We sell them for $80, we buy them for $6 in China. Yeah, that's my best one. There's a few that haven't been so good, but that's a good one. So I want to talk a little bit about sales, which I love, and I want to talk a little bit about change. And you know, you guys are all in industry and your company's evolving, so that means your role has to evolve. And I gotta tell you, I've never met somebody really successful, because that's the great thing about being a celebrity, is you get to meet a lot of successful people. And I've never met somebody successful who's afraid of change. I've never met somebody successful who sits around on their couch and says, yeah, this is really good. I hope it stays like this forever. Right? If you're afraid of change, if you're afraid to go out there, you're going to have a hard time succeeding, especially in this day and age. So the ship that you see in the front is the Titanic. The Titanic at the time was the largest moving object ever created by humankind. That was 100 years ago. The ship behind it is an average size cruise ship. Look at the pace of change in the shipping industry. This is a Ferrari F40. I love cars, so you're going to hear a lot of car now. By the way, congratulations to people who got the Mercedes and the Teslas. I'd like a Mercedes too. I'm just pointing that out in case someone's listening from Mercedes. All right. So this is a Ferrari F40. It came out 17 years ago. It had 471 horsepower. It went 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. It cost $400,000. It was the fastest production car in the world. That was 17 years ago. This is a Dodge Challenger Hellcat. It came out 2 years ago. It has 707 horsepower. It goes 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, and it costs under $70,000. Look at the pace of change. But just in case you're feeling bad for Ferrari, this is their latest car. It's called the LaFerrari. Came out last year. It has 1,000 horsepower. It goes 0 to 60 in 2.1 seconds. It costs $1.8 million, and it's a hybrid. Isn't that amazing? So in Canada, where I live, and that's my actual car, in Canada, where I live, we have these HOV lanes, which are allowed to drive in if there's more than 2 people in your car, and if you have an electric vehicle. The most fun thing about driving in this car is when I'm by myself and driving in gridlock rush hour traffic, the incredible hand gestures I get from people. I'm sure they're just being really friendly with me. But today, you know, the world today is moving at a faster rate than at any other time in history. Do you realize that the internet was invented a long time ago by the military, but it only became available to us, average people, in the late 90s? That's not that long ago. And today, you have cloud computing, you have all these other things online, and it's going to change everything forever. Your customers today can get information they could never get before. Think about that. You can go call on a customer, you can go see somebody, and when you leave, they can check everything you've told them. They can get competitive prices, they can get competitive everything. So you got to be adding value all the time. And you know what happens when the world changes this quickly and everything moves faster and everything becomes more technology oriented? human interaction becomes even more critical. When you're in front of people, you got to take advantage of that. So our business is in the computer business, but really, we're a sales business. We compete with a lot of other companies, and you can buy the same thing from other companies that you can buy from me. And you know what I tell my salespeople? Value starts the minute you walk in the door. Before you even sit down, most people have an opinion of you. And you know what it is? It's not that positive. Because you know what they think you are? A salesman. Oh, it's that used car salesman guy, girl, whatever. And so you got to overcome that right away. You got to make it count, baby. You got to be in front of them right away. But the real thing with this much change is people are looking for value and people are looking for answers. Look at the product that you guys sell. It didn't exist 20 years ago. If people really knew what you did, why would they buy it? Right? It's logical, it makes sense. It's just the fact you got to cut through all that BS in their minds. You got to get them to listen. You know, one time there was somebody on our show and he was talking and making no sense. And then we were talking, and you know, he looks at me and he says, "Hey, Robert, you're not listening to me." And I said, "Let me tell you something, young man. It's not my responsibility to hear you. It's your responsibility to make me listen. Because I worked really hard to sit in this chair. You got to work hard now." Today, there is so much opportunity for growth in so many areas. I mean, I've been sitting here watching the opportunity in this room. Oh my God. It's unbelievable. You got this. I mean, what other company rewards people like the top 50 people in this room? Now, I've met most of them, and I gotta tell you, if they can do it, right? Because I've met all of them. I'm telling you, if they can do it, everybody in this room can do it. You know why people don't do better? Because fundamentally, I think it is human nature to want to better our lives. I don't think any human being wakes up in the morning and says, "I want my life to suck." Does anybody in this room wake up and say, "I want my life to suck"? Who here wants to better their life? And you know what? I don't care if you want to do it for yourself. I don't care if you want to buy a nicer car. I don't care if you want to take care of your family. I don't care if you want to take care of your parents or pay your medical bills. You have an opportunity because you can't do it on your own. You need a vehicle. And the reason people don't do it is it's risky. And you know what they associate with risk? Fear. Because they're scared. It may not work. They may say no. It's really hard. And so you know what they do after they think about all the reasons it may not work? They wait around. And they say, you know, I wasn't successful yesterday. I'm not successful today. So I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to stand here and I'm going to wait for that train of opportunity to make its way to me, baby. And they sit around and they wait. For what? Don't wait. Because you know, it's really up to you. The train of opportunity is never coming down that track. I got to tell you, I'm 53 years old. You couldn't have had a harder life than I've had, and you couldn't have done things more wrong than I've done them. But I'll tell you this one thing, the train of opportunity never came over, stopped in front of me, opened the door, and said, "Come on in." You know what I had to do? I had to go out there and grab it. You have to knock on the door, and the door doesn't always open, and then you know what you gotta do? You gotta push it a little bit, and you gotta push it a little harder. And you got, if it's important to you, you're gonna make it happen. Do you know what this is? 242. This is the amount of banks and venture capital companies that Howard Schultz went to before he got his first funding for Starbucks. How many people in this room would call on 242 banks? How many people in this room would hear 241 no's to get to that one yes? If you think about it, what is Starbucks? It sells a $3 cup of coffee. I mean, we all know it's ridiculous. I'm standing in Starbucks and I'm saying, a grande muki kababa, $4? Really? He's done okay. 302. That is the amount of banks that Walt Disney went to get the funding to build Disney World. 5 years. It took Agatha Christie 5 years to publish her first book. And she couldn't even get it published, so she self-published it. Today, she's the second most published author in the world behind the Bible. Wow. You know, people always say to me, oh, maybe the time isn't right. And they say to me, oh, it's really hard. And I don't know. And you know what I say to those people? I say, the pain of your existing circumstances isn't painful enough for you to make a change. Because I gotta tell you, I wasn't born like this. When I was younger, I couldn't stand on the stage and talk to people. I couldn't do any of it. I don't have a business degree. I have a degree in classical English literature. And you know the only reason I have a degree? Because I was the first person in my entire family that went to get a degree. And I was going to quit university, so I came home one day and I said to my dad, I'm going to quit university, it's not my thing. And my dad came up to me this close to my face and he said to me, I love you, but you no finished, you dead. And I gotta tell you, sometimes intimidation works. I went back and I finished university. And then I got out of university and my dad worked 2 jobs in a factory sweeping floors. And my mom was a receptionist. And we had no money. And so I said, I want to be rich, I think. So I went and asked all kinds of people. I said, what's the key to get ahead in business? You know what people said to me? Oh, Robert, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And you know, to make money, guess what you need? You need money. I didn't have any money. I didn't know anybody. When your dad works in a factory, your mom's a receptionist, how are you going to make those fancy connections? So you know what I did? I tried all kinds of stuff, and I didn't work hard enough because the pain of how I was living wasn't strong enough. And then one day, I just said, I can't be poor anymore. I didn't want to be rich. I didn't want to buy a jet. I don't want to buy a Ferrari. I don't want any of that stuff. You know what I did? And you know what? I just figured it out. But it took a long time. And sometimes it takes a long time to achieve something great. Because it's hard. And it's risky. And I know a little bit about risk. I started a number of companies. You know, I'm on this show. We invest in stuff. We don't know it's going to work all the time. But you know the scariest thing that I've ever done? Dancing in front of 15 million people. So they asked me to do the show, and I was going through a rough time, and I thought, oh, all right, I'll do it, it's fun. How hard can it be? And so you get 3 weeks. So I was the first person to ask for that season. I spent 3 months getting into shape. I'm usually in pretty good shape because I like to work out. I spent 3 months, I talked to Emmett Smith, and he said it was the hardest thing he'd ever done. So I thought, okay, if Emmett Smith is telling me it's the hardest thing he's ever done, I better get into shape. So I've spent 3 months running, everything, show's about to start, and you meet your dancer, you walk in the door, and you realize, I know nothing about dancing. So Kim looks at me and says, let me see what I'm working with. So let's go through a couple of scenarios. Let's say you're at home and the music comes on, how would you move? And I said, I don't understand the question. And she was like, oh, this is going to be rough. Now, Kim was the world ballroom champion. She was one of the top dancers in the world, just like all the dancers. I was petrified. But here's the amazing thing. In 3 weeks, she made me believe like I was a world-class dancer. After 3 weeks before the first dance, I'm like, oh, I got this, baby. It can't be that hard. And then the day before your first dance, you go on the real stage because you've never seen it, and you stand there and you're like, oh my God. There's 900 people live, 15 million people at home, and the producer says, by the way, this is a live show. And you're thinking, what's he talking about? Of course it's a live show. I knew that. He says, what I mean by that is, if you fall down, the camera doesn't stop. And you're like, holy crap, it's a live show. So the premise of my dance was, I was sitting in these chairs, kind of like a Shark Tank thing, and the music starts, I have to get up and walk down to Kim. I was so scared that she wanted to change the entire dance 5 minutes before this. If you ever watch the show, it's very rare that the celebrity starts without the pro. Usually they're touching them because you get so scared you're going to mess it up. David Hasselhoff, who Kim danced with, forgot his entire routine. So she's saying to me, you're not going to remember it, you're not going to remember it. And then she realized, I'm even more scared about her changing it. So she's thinking, what do I say to him? What do I say? And she says to me, just like every day, when you go and you call on people and it gets really hard and you get rejected, she says to me, remember the purpose. So I'm sitting there in that actual chair, music's about to come on, there's 900 people on, I'm so scared, and I remember what she said to me, remember the purpose. And do you know why I really did the show? So a number of years ago, my mom had ovarian cancer. And every Monday, we'd go to the hospital. With the other ladies who had cancer, and my mom used to say to me, oh, Robbie, one day you think you'll be on Dancing with the Stars? And I said, oh, Mom, I'll never be famous enough for that. And then they asked me to do the show, and without even thinking about it, I said yes. And I remembered that that's why I was there. And guess what happens when you remember your purpose? All the fear goes away. And I almost won the stupid show. I may not have won the trophy, but more importantly, I ended up with Kim, who just got engaged last weekend. I did get the bronze. I would still rather have the trophy someday. No, I'm just kidding. So talk about risk and talk about purpose. This is a picture of my dad. And when he was younger, what a good-looking guy. When he was younger, he used to think he was like Cary Grant. And look how black his hair is, because when he was younger, they used to go to dances, and what they would do is they didn't have any money, so they put shoe polish on their shoes, and they go like that with their hands, and they run it through their hair, so they get that black, slick look. And we grew up in a country called Yugoslavia. It's now called Croatia. And my dad used to go around when I was younger and tell me that he was a political prisoner, right? It was a communist country. And he hated the idea that no matter how hard he worked, we were all equal. And it's not that he thought it was better than anybody, but he thought if I work harder and I create more value, I should get paid more. And in a communist country, that just doesn't happen. So, you know, he's a young kid, he used to go to a bar, and he'd say bad things about communism. So he'd get up and he'd say, oh, communism sucks, and he'd get thrown in jail. And so you would think that the normal person would see, oh, okay, say bad things about communism in public, go to jail. You'd think he'd stop doing that. But my dad didn't have that gene. It actually inspired him to go the other way. So he kept doing it. And he got thrown in jail 22 times. And the last time he got thrown in jail, they said to him, if you come back, you will never come back. So he grabbed my mom and me, I'm the only kid. We crossed the border to Italy, and we came to Canada on this boat with one suitcase. And you know, people say to me, oh my God, thank you. People say to me, oh my gosh, you've achieved so much, blah, blah, blah. And I always think, anything I do in my life will pale in comparison to what that man did. If I didn't make something of my life, it wasn't just about me or another car. It meant that their entire life, that entire sacrifice of my parents coming to this country was useless. Because you know what? When you're given an opportunity like this and you don't make something of it, you don't just hurt yourself. You've hurt everybody who supported you and loves you. My dad was 36 years old, left jail, grabbed my mom and I, went to a country, didn't speak the language, had one suitcase and about $20 of the local currency, and he made a life for himself. And he worked at a job. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to sweep floors in a factory and have the other guys make fun of him because he doesn't understand the language. But you know what he did? He did it. And I'll tell you, I've been really poor and I've been pretty rich. And I gotta tell you, rich is better. But it's not just about rich is better because you get better car, you get better house. You know why rich is better? Rich is better because the reality is if in America you don't make a certain amount of money, you can't take care of the people you love. It is your responsibility to take care of yourself and the people that you love. And sometimes, if you do well, you get to really take care of the people you love. So I gotta tell you, the best thing I ever did with my money. So my dad loved cars. We grew up in a communist country, right? The nicest car was something called a Yugo. They used to give away Yugos when you bought a Cadillac in Texas. True story. They used to give them away. It was awful. So one day we're in Canada, we're walking down the street, my dad and I, and we see this car go by, a Cadillac. And I'm like, to my dad, I'm like, wow, what's that? And he just stops and says, that's Cadillac. And I said, what's a Cadillac? And he said, you know, never mind. That's for rich people. And so years later, I buy a Ferrari and I bring it over and I say, Dad, Ferrari. And he said, he's nice. No Cadillac. And then I bring like a Rolls Royce over and he'd look at it and go, he's nice. No Cadillac. So one day I call him up and I say, hey, what are you doing? I'm building a fence and I'm the least handy guy in the world. And he's like, so you got to help me. Let's go buy some lumber. So we get in the car, we're driving to the lumber yard, and I'm like, I'm lost. Let's just pull over here and get a coffee. He's like, you idiot. Why? So he's complaining. So we're having a coffee, and across the street is a Cadillac dealership. So I said, well, let's go look at the Cadillacs. He says, okay. So you have to picture this. It's the middle of the summer, and he's wearing that Russian balaclava with a vest, right? So we walk in, the entire showroom is empty, except for a Cadillac DeVille in that beautiful pearl white color that only Cadillac makes. And it's the only car in the showroom, and it's right in the middle. So we walk up to it, and we're looking at it, and I say, what do you think? He's like, nice. I'm like, why don't you sit in it? He's like, no, my pants dirty. I'm like, I'm sure it's okay. You can sit in it. He's like, you sure? I'm like, yeah. Because you ask somebody. I go, no, it's okay. So I open the door. He sits in there. And you know, he sits down and he puts his hands on the steering wheel. And you know when you've been through hell, and it's been hard, and it's been painful, and then one day, it all seems worthwhile. And he puts his hand on the steering wheel, and it's not about the car anymore, and it's not about a Cadillac. It's about his entire life have that level of meaning. And he's looking at it. And I say to him, what do you think? And he says, one day. And I say, today's the day. And I gotta tell you, I've told that story 50 times. It makes me cry every time. Maybe one day it won't. So that's the actual car. You know, I flip the visor, give him the keys, we drive it home. A few years later, my dad passes away. And so I'm going through his stuff, you know, sorting it out, and I go in the basement and I see this car. And I go to get the car, and now this is like many years later, the car has 1,600 miles on it. What I find out from his neighbors is he never drove the car. So my mom and him, my mom would say, are we taking the Cadillac? He'd say, no, it's raining. Then she'd say, are we taking the car today? He said, no, neighbor parked too close. It got to the point that he would drive to the church on Sunday, but because the church parking lot was so full, he'd park at a mall about a half-mile away that wasn't open, and then walk to church. The walk from the mall was farther than their house. And so my mom, after a while, said, this is ridiculous. She drove on her own, and he still drove the Cadillac. But here's the thing. He didn't just drive to the mall. He first drove it in the parking lot of the church, so all his buddies could see him. And then he drove it to the mall. He loved that car. And, you know, what I've learned is, it ain't about the money, baby. It's about bettering your life. And it does, I don't care if you want a painting or you want whatever, a better school for your kids, better medical care, or if you just want a Cadillac Sedan DeVille. You gotta have a purpose. Because if you don't have a purpose, you don't have meaning, you are not going to work hard enough when the hard times hit. Thank you very much.